Where have we been?
Where have we been?
I don't even know,
Where
really.
have we not been? I feel like we're on a campaign.
Yeah, true. Well, I don't really remember the last month, but we're going to talk about it. And we're going to talk about how our last month and being gone and the craziness actually ties into our family values.
Let's get into that.
Before we jump into today's episode, we just wanted to share a few things with you. First, we'd like you to like this episode and then subscribe to our podcast. If you're doing that on YouTube, also hit the bell notification so that you know when we post anything new. And then share this with somebody that you feel like would be beneficial for.
That's right. If you would like to support our show further, we would welcome that. You are welcome to do that at anchor.fm/marriagebydesign to check out your options for supporting the program financially. Otherwise, guys, the links to our social media are always in the description of every video, so feel free to check those out there. And now, let's get to the show.
Hey everybody, I'm Andrea Warnock.
I'm Nathan Warnock, and you have reached us for Family Friday on the Marriage by Design podcast. This is a show where we talk about what the Bible says about our role as parents and raising our kids and setting our family up for honoring the Lord and how we practically live those things out in our families.
Yeah, so this episode is definitely more of the practically living it out. So we've been missing on these Friday episodes for a little while. And that is in part because our lives kind of got a little crazy the last month or so.
A little unexpectedly crazy.
Unexpectedly, some of it, yes.
Right.
So, naturally with 5 kids, we've kind of got a lot going on in certain seasons. So we had some sports things and whatever going on.
And usually we manage that pretty well. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you're going, I don't care about what you guys have been up to for the last month, we are going to tie this into why this was important for our family.
Yeah, right.
And take away from this, what you will with regards to how this ties into your family. But there's some, I believe, things in this that, hopefully you can walk away going, that gives me something to think about. No, certainly not because we do it sweet by any means, but just because, we're co-laboring, your family and ours, trying to raise kids, right? And what's that song? Keep our daughters off the pole and our sons out of jail.
I've never heard that song.
I think that's isn't that our family
That's
motto?
our motto. Yep. That's our family
Great.
motto.
Perfect. Okay. Brilliant.
Wow. Okay, so some of it has been the season. So it's currently right before Halloween. And this is a time of year that our kids love to go to this. It's not even right to call it a pumpkin patch.
No, it's an amusement park that used to be a pumpkin patch.
That's probably a better way to say it. So in our area, there's this gigantic, they call themselves a pumpkin patch. And they're only open for like a month and a half, and our kids love it, and we go a lot. And so in the last month or so, we've tried to really spend some family time out there. And that's sometimes ended up on the nights that we usually tape. And so we've prioritized sometimes doing that over taping time because it's just such a short time that it's open. And this is also in a window of time that we don't have the bananas schedule of select baseball going on.
Right.
So we've chosen to spend some really intentional family time doing something that our kids really love.
Right. And so what's the one, why does that matter? And 2, what's the cost? I don't mean money wise, although the place is really expensive. And we get season passes so we can go as much as we want, which is partly why we go as much as we do, because you're paying a lot of money for a month and a half of stuff. So we really try to get the most out of that. But maybe explain how does that tie into our family values, and what would the encouragement be for someone that's going, man, I don't know about spending, a lot of money on, going to an amusement park or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So actually this year I had said to Nathan, because this year was harder financially. So I had said to Nathan earlier this year, I just don't think that we're going to get those season passes. And Nathan was like, no, we got to do it. Our kids love it. And we have such great memories out there. You know, we're not perfect at this, but we really try to prioritize our lives with putting God first, spouse second, family third, and then kind of everything else follows after that.
Right.
And that honestly is very hard to keep that priority like that. For me, at least, it's really hard to keep, especially those first three things in the correct balance. Right. So anyway, Nathan was saying, no, we need to sew in that. And so we got those passes for the pumpkin patch. And so we did that. Part of my personality is I have a really hard time spending a lot of time when I'm at home with my kids just playing. Like, I get so caught up with, oh my gosh, this needs to get done, this needs to get done, or this is messy, this is disorganized, this is dirty, blah, 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 you know? And so I have a really hard time spending chunks of time just with my kids if I'm inside the house with them. So I have found that it's actually really beneficial to get out of the house and do things with my kids, because then I'm just focused on them and I'm not so in my head or so neurotic about the house.
Right.
And so some of that is then we sew into some of these sorts of things that we can go do and have fun as family. And this pumpkin patch is great because our kids we have 12 years old down to 9 months old, and our kids of all the ages really love that place. So we choose to prioritize that and, make it something that we're able to do every year.
I would encourage you to think about trying to transition money you spend on your kids from things to experiences, and try as best you can to influence them to pursue experiences rather than possessions.
But things are fun.
There's nothing wrong with that, and this isn't an indictment on things. This is a toys will break, clothing will wear out, but the memory you get from experiences, particularly experiences that further your other family values, like our kids making memories with their siblings that build that relationship. And I mean, most of your friendships, as you think about this, you probably have shared experiences that drew you together as friends beyond, hey, I saw someone at school and then they came to my house or we talked in class and we became best friends, right? I mean, you have those shared experiences, and that's really what your friendship is based on. And we're trying to build that for our kids.
Yeah.
And things like the pumpkin patch are really fertile ground for building these kind of lasting relationships amongst our kids.
Yeah. And it's partly just personalities too. I mean, like I was saying, for me, my personality, it's just better to do stuff like that. So that's one thing. So we've been spending a lot of time at the pumpkin patch amusement kind of park thing.
Right.
Anyway, and then, so that's prioritizing family, right? Then Nathan, if you ever watch our podcast, you will see that Nathan probably every time wears some sort of Mariners gear, whether
right.
it's a shirt or hat or whatever. He's a crazy Mariners fan, and since probably since about 30 years ago, loves the Mariners. And those poor Mariners have sucked for 21 years.
Okay, that's putting it gone a little strong.
They haven't been even close to the World Series in 21 years.
Or the playoffs.
So this year, Nathan's Mariners made it to the playoffs, and he was so excited.
Right.
And
so Andrea said, well, we should go. So the Mariners are from Seattle, Washington. We do not live
near Seattle,
Washington, and where we do live is not super accessible to places like Seattle, Washington. So Andrea was like, well, we should go, which kind of took me aback because Andrea is not one to want to spend
Nope.
money.
I don't want to spend money.
Particularly on things like sporting events. It's not Andrea's thing. And I will say, babe, you've gotten way more into sports, specifically baseball, than I ever would have thought you would have. But spending a lot of money to go watch a playoff baseball game in a city a long ways away from us, it was probably not super high on your list of desires. But you really pushed for us to do this, and so we got tickets to the game, which were pretty cheap, let me tell you, and flights, and found a place to stay and all that.
And Nathan's parents blessed us hugely with paying for our flights, and
right, which was awesome. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
And then we cashed in all of our credit card points for the rest of the trip. So
right.
It was actually great.
Don't tell Dave Ramsey. It was great. We had a great community around
spent
us.
We spent that well.
Went well. So we went out there for about 4 days or so, just Andrea and I and the baby, because the baby is attached to not Andrea's hip, but that's why he came with us. So, but it was really cool. It was a chance for her and I to get away. And I probably don't, and it's probably because I don't have those pesky maternal instincts. But one huge difference between Andrea and I is Andrea's very good about thinking about the family and thinking about the kids and making sure that we include them in things, whereas I would I'm very focused on Andrea and I getting to spend time together and hang out and get away and pursue our relationship, and the kids will sort of get in where they fit in.
Those first 3 priorities for me, really, it's hard for me to keep them, in the way they should be.
Right, and it's a difference, and so it's always a little bit of tension, and I mean that not necessarily in a negative way, between Andrea and I on how we think about things around us.
Yeah.
So I was really it was hitting all of my love languages to be able, just her and I and the baby, to get out to Seattle and spend some time exploring the city. And tragically, the Mariners lost. They had already lost 2 in Houston, and then they lost the 3rd game that eliminated them from the playoffs, the first of the 2 games that we were going to try and go see in an 18-inning marathon, during which Andrea never complained a single time about essentially having to sit through 2 back-to-back baseball games in the same evening. And
I was glad you got to be there and see it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
The energy was amazing.
The energy was great, and that city's so starved for baseball success that I'm hopeful that keeps up. So then we got to go do Pike Place and do all the things. But the encouragement for you guys, and I'm going to share a story that I've shared before, but we have a close friend who got married, and her husband had suggested them taking a trip to get away together. And she, like Andrea, has a really hard time spending money, right? She's very driven, and there's a retirement plan, and there's a financial plan, and there's we're doing all these things. And we need to do those things. But he made a comment to her that I'll never forget. And the comment he made was, I don't know how long we have together. That's just a reality of life. We're both young, and we should have tons of years together, but I don't know that we do. And so I don't want to forego these opportunities for us to do amazing things together just to try and meet some financial goal that we have in our head. And wouldn't you know that shortly after that, he was tragically taken from her. And that time that they got to spend together, how much more precious was that? And so I'm not advocating, being irresponsible with your money by any means. What I am advocating is be intentional about having time together, the 2 of you. And you might be going, well, I tuned in for Family Friday. Why are we having Marriage Monday talk? Because the greatest gift you can give your children is a rock solid, love-infused, passionate marriage with your wife or your husband. it gives them security. It teaches them how to go have that themselves. And statistically, your daughter's probably going to marry someone like the husband, and your sons are probably going to marry someone like the wife, the mother. So make your marriage a priority and display to them exactly what it looks like, the type of man or type of woman that they ought to be pursuing. And sometimes that means doing spontaneous things that cost way more money than if you would have planned them out some months in advance. Sometimes it means sacrificing PTO days that you weren't planning on spending. But whatever the thing is, be willing to sacrifice that for your marriage, understanding that if you have that rock solid marriage that you pursue, you're giving, again, the greatest gift that you can give to your kids.
True.
So that was one thing that we did. And then after we got back from that, we were in town for about 4 days. And then so that was Seattle, Washington, right? So we're in the middle of the country. That was Seattle, Washington. So Pacific Northwest. Came back home for 4 days. And then where'd we go?
Then we went to Florida.
Right.
As a whole family. So my parents last Christmas told us, hey, I have a brother and he has a family. We'll take everyone on a vacation. Let us know where you want to go. Super generous of my parents.
No doubt.
So we decided Florida. So then we all left and met up in Florida for a week-long family vacation. And we just got back from Florida. And that was great to spend time with our family and then extended family, my parents and my brother and his family. So that was great to sew into those relationships. And the kids got to spend time with the cousins, and we got to see, our extended family and hang out all together, which was great.
Yeah, those getaways with extended family are great. And I know not everybody. I mean, look, your brother and his wife and you and I are very different people, and that's great. And so my point is, this is not something where you go, oh well, I don't necessarily get along with my brother and his wife, right? Which is not. I mean, we get along great with your brother and his wife, but if that's preventing you from getting your families together, I would just challenge you to say, maybe try and plan a vacation where you're in the same city but staying in different homes.
Yeah, because we all stayed in the same home.
Right.
And it was great.
Right. But that time with our kids and their kids is really precious time. It's time for our kids to practice what it means to, love on extended family that they don't get to spend time with as much. It's good time for them to practice being selfless and pursuing other people and other relationships. And so it was really good. And I've heard a lot of people say this, that, well, it doesn't really seem like a vacation I want to spend a lot of money on if I'm taking the kids, because a vacation with kids is just a trip.
It is a trip, but
and
you're
that's
making
exactly right.
memories.
That's right.
And I think we struggled with that for a while in the first part of us having kids. Is it's like, man, it's so much work to go on a vacation with kids because there's so much more to pack and think of and manage, just even the management of your children. And then it's not relaxing. Like this is not vacation. It's not relaxing. And I think at some point we changed our mentality mostly to like, yeah, it's going to be a lot of work, and it's going to still be a lot of work when we get there, and it's going to be a lot of work when we get back to try to get everything back in order.
Right.
But the point is to make memories and to get out of our usual rut and routine to hopefully sew into each other in different ways.
Right.
And that's important. And I want my kids to have those experiences and those memories and see that we sacrifice, our time and our efforts and our money and all that sort of thing to sew into them and sew into us as a family and our extended family, and that's important. And so hopefully our kids see that. And I have, while we were on this trip, I won't call it vacation, when we were on this trip with my parents and my brother and his family, my brother and my parents and I were reminiscing about a lot of the vacations that we took growing up, and thinking about, well, our kids are going to be able to do that too. And I have such great memories and from the experiences that we had going places, and Nathan does too. And it doesn't have to be, oh, I live in the middle of the country and I need to go to Florida, I need to spend a ton of money. We went camping when I was growing up quite often, and that doesn't have to be expensive. Borrow a tent and some sleeping bags from somebody. And it was great fun. It was a lot of work, I know, for my parents, but it was great fun and amazing memories. And even if you just do, a couple day trips here and there, I think it's important to get away from your normal routine, from your usual place of residence, whatever. I think it's important to get away. And, some trips that we do are getting away and we're really busy on those trips. And some trips that we do, we get away and we're really not busy, and we're just, there's no plan, and we don't do a whole lot, and we just kind of spend time with each other, and we're outside, whatever, hiking around, whatever we're doing. And I think it's good to have both.
Yeah, that's right.
And we really sew into our family in different ways with both trips, but it's nice to sometimes, do something that's really not costly, but we're kind of inward focused.
Right.
So it's a really big value of ours to put family up high on our priority list, and not just say it, but sew into that.
Right.
And create relationships and memories and all that good stuff, so
it's good.
Yeah,
it's great.
So that's where we've been for the last month,
but now we're back,
hopefully.
Yeah. So thanks for hanging with us. And if you didn't get a chance to catch our Marriage Monday this week, love to have you go back and have a listen to that. We were addressing a comment that was left to one of our videos, so love to have you listen to that.
I think, sorry, I'm just going to say one more thing.
Yeah,
I think
please do.
Just to wrap this episode up, it's important to to really think about, what do we value as a family, and how can we not just say it, but do that by the way we live our lives.
Right. Well, that's what's going to really mean something to our kids, too. It's one thing to say something. It's another thing to show it to them.
Right.
That's good. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you being here. Love for you to have a great weekend. We'll be back at you with a Marriage Monday coming up next week. Until then, guys, remember, God is for your family. Have a great weekend.
Hehehehe